I'm going to be reading a short excerpt from the book called The Giver of Stars, Jojo Moyes, which is about the horseback librarians in Kentucky in the late 1930s. So, what the Sam Hill is a traveling library anyway? Alice was startled out of a reverie with a sharp nudge from Bennett's elbow. They got one in Mississippi using boats, called the voice near the back of the hall. You won't get no boats up and down our creek. Too shallow. I believe the plan is to use horses, said Mrs. Brady. You're going to take horses up and down the river? Crazy talk. The first delivery of books had come from Chicago, Mrs. Brady continued, and more were en route. There would be a wide selection of fiction from Mark Twain to Shakespeare and practical books containing recipes, domestic tips, and help with child rearing. There would even be comic books, a revelation that made some of the children squeal with excitement. Alice checked her wristwatch, wondering when she would get her shaved ice. The one good thing about these meetings was that they weren't stuck in the house all evening. She was already dreading what the winters would be like, when it would be harder for them to find reason to escape. What man has time to go riding? We need to be working, not paying social calls with the latest edition of Ladies' Home Journal. There was a ripple of laughter. Tom Faraday likes to look at ladies' undergarments in the Sears catalog. Oh, I heard he spends hours at a time in an outhouse reading that. Mr. Porteous. It's men. It's not men. It's women, came a voice. There was a brief silence. Alice turned to look. The woman was leaning against the back door in a dark blue cotton coat with her sleeve rolled up. She wore leather breeches and her boots were unpolished. She might have been in her late 30s or early 40s, her handsome face and her long dark hair tied back in a cursory knot. It's women when they're riding, delivering the books. Women? By themselves? Came a man's voice. Last time I looked, I gave them 2 arms and 2 legs, just like the men. A brief murmur rippled through the audience. Alice peered more closely, intrigued. Thank you, Marjorie. Over at Harlan County, they've got 6 women and a whole system up and running. And as I say, we'll be getting something similar going here. There are 2 librarians already. And Mr. Gersler has very kindly lent us a couple of his horses. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank him for his generosity. Mrs. Brady motioned the younger woman forward. Many of you will know Miss O'Hara. Oh, we know the O'Haras all right. And you will be aware that she has been working these last weeks to help set things up. We also have Beth Pinker. Stand up, Beth. A freckled girl with a snub nose and a dark blonde hair that awkwardly and sat straight back down, who is working with Miss O'Hara. One of the main reasons I called this meeting is that we need more ladies who understand the rudiments of literature and its organization so that we can move forward with this most worthy civic project. Mr. Gersler, the horse dealer, lifted a hand. He stood up, and after hesitating a moment, he spoke with quiet certainty. Well, I think it's a fine idea. My own mother was a great reader of books. I've offered my old milk barn for the library. I believe all right-minded people here should be supporting it. Thank you. He sat down again. Marjorie O'Hara leaned her backside against the desk at the front and gazed steadily out at the sea of faces. Alice noted a murmur of vague discontent moving around the room, and it seemed to be directed at her. She also noted that Marjorie O'Hara seemed supremely untroubled by it. We have a large county to cover, Mrs. Brady added. We can't do it with just 2 girls. A woman at the front of the hall called, what would it mean, this horseback librarian thing? Well, it would involve riding to some of the more remote dwellings and providing reading materials to those who might not otherwise be able to travel to the county libraries, who say to ill health, frailty, or lack of transportation. She lowered her head so that she could see over the half-moon spectacles. I would add that this is to aid the spread of education, to help bring knowledge to those places where it might currently be sadly lacking. Our president and his wife believe this project can bring knowledge and learning back to the foreground of rural lives. I ain't letting my lady ride up in no mountains, came a call from the back. You're just afraid she won't come back again, Henry Porteous. You can have mine. I'd be more than happy if she rode off and never came home. A burst of laughter traveled across the room. Mrs. Brady's voice lifted in frustration. Gentlemen, please, I'm asking for some of our ladies to contribute to our civic good and sign up. The WPA will provide the horse and the book. You would simply be required to commit to at least 4 days a week delivering them. There will be early starts and long days. Given the topography of our beautiful county, I believe there will be huge rewards. Why don't you do it? Came a voice from the back. I would volunteer. As many of you know, I am a martyr to my hips. Dr. Garnett has warned me that to ride such distances would be too great a physical challenge. Ideally, we are looking for volunteers among the younger ladies. It ain't safe for a young lady by herself. I'm agin it. It ain't proper. Women should be looking after the home. What's next? Women down the mines, driving lumber trucks? Mr. Simmons, if you can't see there's a world of difference between a lumber truck and a copy of Twelfth Night, Lord help Kentucky's economy, for I don't know where we'll be headed. Family should be reading the Bible, nothing else. Who's going to keep an eye on what they're putting out then? Anyhow, you know what they're like up north. Might spread all kinds of crazy notions. It's books, Mr. Simmons. Same you learned when you were a boy. Then I seem to remember you were more keen on tweaking girls' pigtails than you were on reading. Another burst of laughter. Nobody moved. A woman looked at her husband, but he gave her a small shake of his head. Mrs. Brady raised a hand. Oh, forgot to mention, it's a paid opportunity. Remuneration will be in the region of $28 a month. Who would like to sign up? There was a brief murmur. And that's the excerpt from The Giver of Stars by Jojo Moyes.